Most Americans who have heard of Special Operations know Delta Force. They know the unit has roughly 250 operators. They know it answers to JSOC. They know its members come from the Ranger Regiment, the Green Berets, and the SEAL teams. They know Delta is the tip of the American military spear, the unit sent when every other option has already failed. What most Americans do not know is that there is a unit that recruits its operators from Delta Force itself, and that unit answers to no one Delta Force has ever met. CIA Ground Branch is what happens when the United States needs an operator to do something the Department of Defense is legally forbidden from ordering. They are recruited from the best of the best. They are paid more than they ever earned in uniform. And the Delta Force teammates they leave behind do not always envy the choice, because the freedom Ground Branch operators carry comes with a cost that no military benefits package has ever covered. What is that cost? And why does it make even seasoned Delta operators pause before accepting the offer? The answer starts not with a weapon or a mission. It starts with a law. Picture a Delta Force operator somewhere in his mid-30s. He has been through the selection course. He has been to the mountains and back. He has served multiple combat rotations. He is, by any objective measure, among the most capable soldiers the United States Army has ever produced. He knows the force intimately. He knows JSOC. He knows the chain of command from his team room all the way to the Pentagon. He understands the system because he has lived inside it for over a decade. And then one day, someone sits across from him and explains that everything he knows about authority, oversight, and accountability is about to change. That conversation happens when CIA Ground Branch comes knocking. Ground Branch is the paramilitary arm of the CIA's Special Activities Center. The Special Activities Center is the division within the Central Intelligence Agency responsible for covert action, meaning operations that the United States government can plausibly deny ever happened. Within that center, Ground Branch supplies the human muscle, roughly 200 to 300 paramilitary officers at any given time, depending on operational tempo and recruitment cycles. Former Special Operations Forces almost exclusively. Delta Force and DevGru contribute the largest percentage, though Marine Raiders and select Air Force Special Operators have also made the transition. But here is what former operators actually say about the recruitment process. It is not a job posting, it is an approach. The CIA does not advertise Ground Branch positions to the general military population. Officers are identified, watched, and eventually contacted. The vetting process is longer and more invasive than military special operations selection, which is already among the most demanding evaluations in American institutional history. And the rejection rate at the final stages is reportedly higher than anything the candidate faced in uniform. The best of the best. That phrase gets used carelessly in special operations circles. Ground Branch operators use it differently. They use it to describe the men they were already working alongside before the offer came. They left those men behind to join an organization the public cannot fully verify, doing work the public will never see, under authority the public does not entirely understand. That authority is the center of everything. Delta Force operates under Title 10 of the United States Code. Title 10 is the body of federal law governing the United States Armed Forces. It defines the structure, the funding, the chain of command, the rules of engagement, and the oversight mechanisms for every military unit in the country. When Delta Force deploys, it deploys as an element of the Department of Defense. It has after-action reporting requirements. It has geographic combatant command oversight. It has legal review at multiple levels. Operators carry military identification. Their missions, even the classified ones, exist somewhere inside a documented military framework. There is a paper trail. There is accountability. There is a chain. Ground Branch operates under Title 50. Title 50 of the United States Code governs national defense and war and national security in the broadest sense, but the relevant section for Ground Branch is the portion covering covert action. Under Title 50, the CIA can conduct operations authorized by a presidential finding, a classified executive document authorizing a specific covert action. That finding goes to the intelligence committees of Congress. It does not go through the Pentagon. It does not go through the Joint Chiefs. The oversight structure is different in kind, not just in degree. The answer to why this matters is this. A Delta Force operator who pulls a trigger on a sanctioned military mission does so as a soldier of the United States Army, under the laws of armed conflict, with the full institutional weight of the Department of Defense behind him. A ground branch paramilitary officer who takes an action under a covert finding does so as a civilian intelligence operative acting under presidential authority. The legal character of the act is fundamentally different. The accountability structure is fundamentally different. And the deniability available to the United States government is fundamentally different. It is not that one is more lethal than the other. It is that they operate under different legal universes, and that separation has real consequences on the ground. Former operators describe joint missions where the separation becomes visible in ways that can feel disorienting. Picture a forward operating base somewhere in a country the United States has a complicated relationship with. Delta operators are present for a briefing. Ground branch personnel are present for the same briefing. At a certain point in that briefing, the ground branch personnel receive information that the Delta operators are not cleared for. The military operators leave the room. The covert action briefing continues without them. This is not a question of individual capability. No one in that room is doubting the Delta operators. It is a question of legal authority and what can be officially acknowledged. Ground branch may be tasked with objectives that Delta is never told about. Ground branch may operate in countries the United States officially has zero presence in. Ground branch may take actions that, if they become public, the Secretary of Defense can truthfully say the Department of Defense had no knowledge of, because the Department of Defense had no knowledge of it. That asymmetry of clearance, authority, and deniability is the thing former Delta operators describe when they talk about why the most senior person in the room sometimes wears no uniform and answers no questions. It is not theater, it is architecture. Within the Special Activities Center, ground branch operators can be tasked to support, enable, or independently execute operations that fall outside Title X authority entirely. They can move in denied areas, meaning geographic locations where the United States military cannot legally operate. They can work with assets and intermediaries who would never be allowed anywhere near a military chain of command. They can receive mission parameters that have been authorized at the presidential level without passing through the layered approval process that governs even the most sensitive JSOC operations. Multiple former cadre members confirm a counterintuitive pattern in how ground branch authority actually functions in the field. The operator with fewer official restrictions is not necessarily the one with more freedom of action in the moment. He is often the one with more responsibility and less institutional protection. When something goes wrong on a JSOC mission, there is an apparatus. There is a JAG officer. There is a formal inquiry process. There is, in the most extreme circumstances, a court-martial system. When something goes wrong on a covert action, the apparatus looks different. The accountability exists, but it runs through a different building. It is not that ground branch is more capable than Delta. It is that ground branch is allowed to do things Delta is not. And that legal asymmetry is the reason Delta operators occasionally find themselves on missions where the most senior person in the room wears no uniform and answers no questions. That person has not outranked the Delta operators in a military sense. He has simply stepped through a different legal door. And once you step through that door, the rules on the other side are not the rules you spent your career learning. That door has a price of admission. Ground branch operators carry no military identification on operations. None. A former Navy SEAL carrying a trident and a common access card has institutional identity. He is a member of a recognized military unit, covered by the Uniform Code of Military Justice, protected by the Geneva Conventions to the extent those protections apply, and acknowledged by the government that sent him. A ground branch paramilitary officer in a denied area carries documentation suited to whatever cover story his operation requires. His real identity, his real employer, and his real mission are not on paper. If he is captured, the United States government retains the option to deny his existence, not as an informal policy, as a structural feature of covert action under Title 50. The denial is not guaranteed, and in high-profile cases, political reality often overrides legal option, but the architecture is built for deniability. The operator goes in knowing the architecture. If he is killed, the acknowledgement can be even more stripped down. The CIA Memorial Wall, in the original headquarters building in Langley, carries stars carved into its marble face, one for each officer who died in service. As of recent public reporting, the wall carries over 140 stars. A significant number of those stars carry no name in the accompanying Book of Honor. The name is classified. The circumstances are classified. The family may know, The public does not. The stars without names are the physical expression of the deniability tax. The operator accepted terms that allowed the government to serve his country in ways that could never be put on a headstone. His family may grieve without context. His country may benefit without acknowledgement. The trade is not hypothetical. It has been paid, repeatedly, since Ground Branch in its modern form began recruiting from Special Operations Forces decades ago. The existence of Ground Branch is publicly acknowledged in CIA documents and congressional testimony. This is not a conspiracy, and it is not a theory. The Special Activities Center is a named organization within a named intelligence agency, but the acknowledgement is narrow. What the organization does, who specifically does it, where they do it, and under what specific findings they operate remains classified at levels that make most JSOC compartments look transparent. Former operators who have made the transition describe the adjustment period as significant. The military, for all its secrecy, is a culture built on institutional identity. Your unit patch, your rank, your citation record, your reputation within the special operations community, these things are currency. They define you inside a world where being known by your peers is a form of professional standing. Ground Branch requires shedding much of that identity. The operators who thrive are the ones who find the operational mission itself sufficient, without the cultural reinforcement structures the military provides. The pay is better, the autonomy is broader, the operations are, in the framing of former officers who have discussed this carefully in public forums, unlike anything available inside the military. Working in denied areas, running operations that will never be declassified, operating with a legal authority that supersedes what any JSOC commander can authorize, these are not abstractions to the operators who choose them. They are the reasons the choice gets made. But here is what former operators actually say when they discuss the trade-off honestly. The brotherhood inside Delta Force is not a recruiting phrase. It is a genuine feature of how Tier 1 units function. The men you train with, deploy with, and carry home when necessary become the defining relationships of your adult life. Leaving that for an organization where your colleagues cannot discuss their work, your missions cannot be mentioned, and your entire professional identity is sealed inside a classification compartment, that is a loss. Not everyone who gets the offer takes it. Some of the most capable operators in the force decide the trade is not worth it. The ones who take the offer know what they are accepting: more authority, more pay, more operational freedom, and a fundamental renegotiation of the relationship between the operator and the state. The state gains a tool it can use in places and ways the uniformed military cannot reach. The operator gains freedom of action and loses the institutional protection that uniform and rank provide. Some men want the mission badly enough to accept those terms. Some do not. Both choices reflect a clear-eyed understanding of what is actually on the table. The legal asymmetry between Title 10 and Title 50 is not an accident. Congress designed it deliberately over decades of legislating the relationship between military authority and intelligence authority. The separation exists because the United States needs tools with different legal characteristics for different strategic situations. Delta Force is the visible edge of American military capability, operating within a framework that allows the government to acknowledge its existence and defend its actions under the laws of armed conflict. Ground Branch is the tool for situations where acknowledgement itself is the liability. Both tools are necessary. Both are staffed by men of exceptional capability and commitment. The difference between them is not a matter of courage or skill. It is a matter of legal architecture, and the architecture was built the way it was built because the situations that require Ground Branch are the situations where the architecture of military authority is not adequate to the mission. If you had a chance to leave Delta Force tomorrow and join Ground Branch, knowing you would have more authority, more pay, and more freedom of action, but that your country could disavow your existence if anything went wrong, would you take the offer? Tell me in the comments. The next video on this channel breaks down the dark reason Al-Qaeda commanders specifically feared Delta Force night raids during the Iraq surge, and why those raids broke enemy leadership psychologically before they broke them militarily. That video is on screen now. Subscribe to see more that reveals what really happens in the shadows of special operations, the stories that never make the briefing rooms and never make the news. This is where they live. Re-audit complete.